This is an impressive book. DC Comics, 60 Years of the World's Greatest or Favourite Comic Book Heroes by Les Daniels. I might even get the title right sometimes. However, DC Comics, this is 256 pages. You should be able to pick up copies reasonably cheap. I think I paid about £2 for this. Brilliant hardback book, and it came out in 1995. So anything that's obviously later will not appear in it. And here's the book itself, a lovely hardback book. And there is a similar book for Marvel Comics as well, and that's really great to check out. But before I go any further, here's this one. This is the first DC comic. This is obviously it's not an original. This is the hardback that came out a few years ago. But at the moment, there is a facsimile, I can even say that word even, facsimile out at the moment, which is pretty impressive. I think it's about £9 or £10. DC Comics, year by year. Weirdly, this book, which I think is absolutely lovely, goes all the way only to 1967. It says 1930 there, which is really odd. They're really stretching the DC history back. So by that principle, it's obviously not very long before we get the 100 years if they do it that way. But also this one from Hasen, which I think is pretty good. Well, this one goes 1935. They can never agree on the date. Let's see, 1935 to 1956, the golden age of comics, DC Comics. Now, there is a massive, of course, Hasen book. I haven't got that one, but I've never even read that one, so I'm certain it's pretty good. But this one, I think is excellent. I assume the 100th anniversary, there will be a load of additional books. Whether they will be as good as this, who knows? Because straight away, we're into the origin of Superman there. Of course, Superman, Action Comics #1. And you can see there the table of contents. So you can see quite a bit of all the various In Search of a Hero, The Birth of Superman, Lois Lane, Superman Style, Batman, etc. Detective Comics, of course, 27. You've got an introduction, so you can see all the various things there. But the early comics, New Fun Comics, well, that one, I think, well, let's go back a bit. Here he is, the guy that founded DC Comics, Major Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. Now, of course, his name has sort of vanished from the DC Comics, but still, there he was, the founder. And you've got Adventure, which was a pulp magazine. But there is New Fun, the big comic magazine, and then followed by a more sort of conventional magazine, which was New Comics. I've seen that copy. I mentioned it a few times. I regret not buying that because I did see a reasonably priced copy of it. I didn't know what it was at the time. If I had, I would have bought it. And of course, got In Search of a Hero, the first comic book hero characters, because they're all sort of like humour, sort of adventure stories, Slam Brady, and those sort of people. Detective Comics, spicy Detective Comics, and you can see there some early ones. They were going to bring out an omnibus edition of all those Detective Comics. I hope that if they don't bring that out, they will be bringing out a DC finest of those. Why not? They must have all the various plates. Hopefully, they'll bring that out. It'd be superb. Action Comics, obviously, these are out, available readily. You can see many a facsimile for those. But Action Comics #1, the first Superman. And then, of course, we've got Superman there. Lois Lane can do anything Superman can do. Obviously, generally for 1 or 2 issues at most. But she's still major character in Superman's story. Then you've got Detective Comics, obviously Batman, followed by, of course, Robin in issue 38. And you can see Batman's debut there, and you've got The Man Who Lived in Shadows. I love that other issue. I think it was issue 31. That's a classic one, because you've got Catwoman and the Joker and many other characters that turned up later. Then a key thing, and personally some of my favourite stories, these ones, the All-American Comics. I love these ones, and even that really sort of had a mix of characters at the start. It was only issue, I think it was 17, All-American Comics, and then you had, with Green Lantern, of course, you also had Scribbly there, and other characters. I think it was Flash Comics. It really started a whole heap of great characters. Of course, we had Spectre, Doctor Fate, all those sort of ones. And, of course, the legendary Justice Society America. I just love these ones, and they're bringing out those in DC Finest, and I think they're just absolutely superb story. This one, I assume, is from All-Star Comics issue 3, of course, the first appearance of Justice Society. Before that, they were doing them in separate stories. Obviously, someone had a great idea and say, you know what, let's just bring them out as a team. Why not? I'm surprised they just haven't done that with lots of other ones as well. But still, we got Wonder Woman, of course, there. lovely Sensation Comics issue number 6, and that used to, well, have lots of other characters as well. It wasn't just, I think it was Wildcat, etc. Superman on the radio, of course, they expanded out Superman on film, and so on. Here's Superman, WOR, I guess that means a radio station. However, Superman toys, they went full on, didn't they, at that point? But Superman's powers, the evolution of a superhero, of course, starts out fairly sort of just running, could do a bit of distant leaping and that, but eventually became super powerful. Then, of course, they have to introduce some way of lowering his power, a bit like, of course, the Green Lantern with wood or the colour yellow. And then, of course, the saga of Superboy. We got that. Really nice. They brought out finally some DC finest of Superboy as well. I hope they extend back to those original stories. But also DC did other things as well. Of course, they got Real Fact Comics. Not perhaps the world's greatest of titles, but that's what they went with. Tommy Tomorrow, all those sort of characters. Tomahawk, again, another one set of characters that would be really nice to see in DC finest. Pow Wow Smith, what a great name that is. Pow Wow Smith. Of course, you've got some brilliant artwork. Alex Toth. Mystery in Space. Adam Strange, of course. I think that's lovely, those sort of stories. They're absolutely great covers. There's Strange Adventures. Young Romance. Of course, those romance stories. Girls Love. Date with Judy. Now, these stories have yet to appear in DC Finest. I hope they do some. Perhaps they will do a sort of collection of romance as a genre. Maybe. I'm certain they're never the best of sellers, I know, but that's still, it would be nice to certainly see a selection of The Man Who Was Superman. We've got George Reeves, of course. And then on to House of Secrets, crime suspense stories. Now, of course, DC Comics started with All American Comics. All American Comics got incorporated into DC or National, but Gaines went off and created EC Comics. And of course, now it was the Sun, of course, that did the crime suspense stories and those ones, but they're always great to see. Now there's all the other characters, of course, Marvel Family, Plastic Man, Quality. They eventually, of course, became part of the DC world as well. So you've got here Superman Family, Bizarro, of course, and Supergirl. And then Legion of Superheroes. I loved the Legion of Superheroes. Absolutely great stories. Very unusual, very quirky stories. Sort of stories that no one would ever bring out now, but I thoroughly enjoyed them. Same with the Justice League of America. They were favourites of mine as well. I probably got most of the Justice League of America. Obviously not the super expensive ones. Brave and the Bold. Of course, the classic one there. That was 28. Was it 28? It was 28, wasn't it? And of course, Atom. Lots of the stories turned up in their Showcase. Now, Showcase was, I think, a magazine they could redo now. Wouldn't it be nice just to bring out sort of where characters have a go, a chance for the... So here you got Showcase, Atom, you had Hawkman, Challenges of the Unknown. All those sort of characters got their chance in that. Now, not all of them ended up with their own series, which is pity sometimes, but some did. Also, Flash, of course, there, Justice League America. We're into the Silver Age now, the old heroes, and you've got some of the characters coming back. You've obviously got the old Golden Age Flash, as well as the Silver Age Flash, which, of course, they had the Justice League of America one, Justice Society. Then it went Batmania, which is really nice. I had all those. Loved all these things. Wish I'd kept them. All these various models as well. They were very, very popular. Now, I didn't have any of these ones. Batman Bread. I'm not certain that ever turned up in the UK, or even maybe peanut butter. It's quite possible. Don't particularly recall those, I must admit. Superman on Broadway, well, didn't see those, but Strange Adventures. We've got Dead Man comes in at this point, and then we've got the Creeper, of course, Ditko, love those ones, and Secret Six. And, of course, you have the Green Lantern, the classic ones there. Neil Adams, brilliant with Green Arrow, 76, just a classic. Onto things like the House of Mystery. So it's going through the entire history. It's got some very large, lovely single pages, which I think always great. Also a bit of detail about all the various things. And then we're into Kirby, the Fourth World. Now they're bringing out a DC finest of those, so hopefully there'll be like Forever People. But of course, a lot of those have already been made available over the years. This one, of course, classic one, Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Now, there is a facsimile of that, I think, out now. That's available. And also Starfire. And then it goes into new markets, new formats, as it says here. These ones, Sun Devils, the Sun Devils, not the Sea Devils, but the Sun Devils in this case. And remember those Brian Bolland characters there. Of course, Man of Steel revisited, John Byrne. I thoroughly enjoyed those. I've got quite a few of those John Byrne collections, which are always really good. Who killed Robin? I'm not certain. I can't remember who did. But Death in the Family. And he's alive, thank God. Or let's see on to Star Raiders. Of course, they had all these different formats. And I think that one looks like a bit of Dave McKean, who for me is probably the greatest artist that's ever lived. Maybe that's pushing it, but he is, for me, one of my favourites. Really love his book. And this one, Arkham Asylum, an absolute classic. Of course, recently I just got his superb 2-volume, lots and lots of his work, which is just amazing. Now, this series I never saw, Gone in a Flash. I think the DVD's available. I don't know if there's a Blu-ray of that. One of those ones that I must check out. Of course, love the series Flash on TV, but it's obviously those are not mentioned in this. But also you've got, of course, the films. Batmania. Haven't watched those for years. Batman 1, Batman 2. Occasionally I think, I really must sit down and watch those again. On to Hellblazer, and also many other... Oh, that's a Doom Patrol. I really enjoyed those ones. They were good. Simon Bisley for the cover of Doom Patrol. Love those. And also some very quirky, weird, wonderful covers there. I don't know who that is. Flushman? What's that? I don't know. Obviously, different countries. Yankee, Batman, obviously a German one there. Very odd. And on to Batman Forever. Obviously, a lot about Batman. But this book is just superb. As mentioned, there are other books, as these ones as well. I'm certain that we will get other ones. But for me, this one is a really decent book. DC Comics by Les Daniels, I think, is just really worth it. Good part for any fan of DC Comics, I think, just to learn all the various history of all the characters. Things like this one, Gangbusters, Mr. District Attorney. Again, something I hope turns up in Phantom Stranger in the DC Finest. There's so many possible ones that they could bring out. Things like Robot Man, who doesn't get much of a mention. Actually, saying that, I'm certain we probably won't get a DC Finest of Peter Porkchops. I love that name. And the Comic Cavalcade. There's Fox and the Crow. I suspect license issues, I don't know for those. But these are annual titles. And of course, there were all the... I probably passed that page, the Bob Hope and those sort of ones, which and all these ones, Alan Ladd, again, Adventures of Bob Hope. I suspect we will never see a DC Finest of those. It would be nice. What would it be under? Genre of movies, perhaps? Movies genre. But I guess licensing issues for those going to make it very hard. But still, this is a great book. Comic Codes Crunch and much, much more in this wonderful book on DC Comics. Have you got this book? I'm certain that 1995, probably lots of people have bought this book. Maybe they've sold it, maybe they haven't. I don't know. But have you got this book? It's a great one. Worth checking out. Bye.